So now we will start with the unit 2 of the ancient history, which is about the prehistoric India and the Harappan culture. Okay, so in this chapter we'll be discussing two things. A is about the prehistoric times. As I already told you that history is basically, see, history, if you know, we have divided into either world history or Indian history. Okay, then in Indian history also we can divide it into ancient, medieval, modern, and then post-independent. Okay, but apart from that, like the major classification what historians use to classify history is what we call as the prehistory, proto-history, and the history that we study today. Okay, so the prehistory is basically that time of history where you do not find any written evidences, like any script. Okay, so that is why it is called as the prehistory. And proto-history is that part of history where you have written inscriptions, you have written form of script, but you can't decipher it. You don't know कि उसमें like what is the meaning of it, like because you don't know what alphabet it means, what that word means. So you have a script written in front of you, but you can't read it, you can't understand it, that what it is trying to tell you. So that is proto history. Okay, so the prehistory is basically this part, prehistoric India, and proto history is this Harappan culture part, which is also called as the Chalcolithic period. Okay, so now after understanding this chapter you will understand, okay, what do you mean by lithic, what comes in prehistoric times, or what was there in Harappan culture, etc. So this chapter is going to be really I would say interesting, and also a little bit longer because we have to cover two times of histories here, like proto history also and prehistory times also, prehistoric times also. Okay, so taking the basis Tamil Nadu book, let's just start with the chapter. So you will find that the history of human settlements in India, it goes back to prehistoric times. So prehistoric times in the sense, so if I have to give you a broad timeline, then prehistoric times will be basically starting from lakhs of years and going till somewhere around 4700 years ago. Okay, so that will be what you call as the timeline of the prehistoric times. And the human settlements basically they started from this period itself. Okay, and many of the, there are many sites in India where you can find remains of these people who lived lakhs of years ago, okay, who lived like thousands and thousands of years ago, because you have some sort of like tools which have been left behind them. You have some sort of painting somewhere, okay, in the caves, etc., where they might have constructed something, and then now you can decipher it and you can see, okay, they used to be humans which were living there for like in earlier times. Okay, so the tools that we use to generally, understand whether there was someone living or not is like stone tools, the pottery, the artifacts, and then the metal implements that might have been used by these historic people. Okay, in India, if you know, the prehistoric period has been divided into three parts. Okay, remember, Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic. Paleo means basically, say, lithic means stone. Okay, and paleo means old, so it is old stone age. Okay, similarly, Meso means middle, and lithic means stone, so it means middle stone age. And neo means, what does neo means? Neo means new, and lithic means stone, that means new stone age. So old stone age, middle stone age, and new stone age, Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic. Okay, and after this basically prehistoric time, you will find there is the entry of metal stage. So in metal stage also there can be copper stone age, and then there can be iron age. So copper stone age is what we call as Chalcolithic. Lithic means stone, chalco means copper, therefore combination of copper and stone. And iron age is what comes after Harappan civilization during the Vedic times. So prehistoric times is just a stone age. Proto-historic or Harappan civilization is Chalcolithic stage, and after Harappan civilization, when there is a starting of Vedic civilization or Vedic culture, we say it's an incoming of Iron Age. Okay. But you can always see that in history there are very less times when you can exactly say, okay, this was end of one thing and this was starting another thing. Okay, it generally what happens, something is declining and something else has started coming up, so these two are merging. Okay, so you cannot say that completely this thing stopped at this particular point of time and from here only something else will start. So you will find that these periods, they're not uniform throughout the Indian subcontinent. Okay, so now tell me ki, you are studying history, but how do you know these things existed, or how do you know the age of these things? So there are many ways to find out the age. Okay, and one of the major techniques that is used is basically something referred to as dendrochronology or radiocarbon dating. Okay, there are many techniques. So technique, this has been asked in prelims, guys, earlier also. Technologies by which you can detect the age of material, or you can detect how old a particular artifact is. See, either you do radiocarbon dating, okay, when you use a carbon isotope, carbon 14 isotope, to understand what's the age of a particular thing, or you do dendrochronology, okay, wherein you count the rings present in the tree, okay, and see how old can the tree be. Or there's something called as palynology, wherein basically what happens is artifacts like some pottery material or some you can say some sculpture, etc., some pollen might have gotten stuck to it, and these pollen's age can be determined So based on that, you can actually determine the rough age of artifact. So these are like the three techniques which are commonly used for identifying the age and for calculating okay, how old a particular thing is. Okay, and this radiocarbon isotope means basically, see, if you're talking about something which is 4700 years ago, so at that point of time versus at this point of time, you will find that there is a difference between the concentration of carbon 14 isotope. Okay, so this concentration of carbon 14 isotope over the year has decreased, obviously, because it was present here in the enormous time, but now it has decreased. So that amount of percentage decrease actually tells you the period that has elapsed. Okay, so here you can see carbon dating, and then you can talk about dendrochronology. Okay, and after that, just add here pollinology also. Okay, so that you know that pollens can also be one way of calculating the age. Okay, so now what we'll do is basically we will start with all these ages, and we will discuss them in detail. Okay, so first we are discussing prehistoric times, which what we call as the Stone Age, and in Stone Age we are discussing Paleolithic, then we'll go to Mesolithic, and then we'll move to Neolithic. Okay, so we'll start with the Paleolithic, or what we call as an Old Stone Age. Okay, so Old Stone Age, the rough time period, if I have to give you, it will be somewhere around 4 lakh years to roughly, I'll say, around 10,000 or 12,000 BC. Okay, so 4 lakh BC in the sense before Christ, to 10,000 or 12,000 years before, which is before Christ. Okay, so it's a very, very huge period. Okay, so if you have to give you a rough diagram, see, this is how I'll make it: Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic. Paleolithic will go from 4 lakh BC, it is all in BC, okay, to 10,000 or 12,000 BC, because I'm telling you different books might have a different transition phase. Then Mesolithic, either way it will go from 10 to 8,000, or it will go from 12,000 to somewhere around 10,000 BC. And then from that particular time, 10,000 or 8,000 to 4,700 around, or 4,000 BC will be your Neolithic period. Okay, so please remember this timeline. And now we will start with this Paleolithic Old Stone Age. So Paleolithic Old Stone Age is basically an Old Stone Age sites we have discovered. Okay, and they have been found in various locations in Indian subcontinent. Okay, these sites I already told you. See, earlier men was what? Earlier men was not cultivating crops, not domesticating animals. They used to basically something called do hunting and gathering. Okay, they used to hunt animals, and then they used to gather food, fruits, etc. They used to do fishing, but they didn't know the art of domesticating. Okay, so they used to just survive themselves by living in jungles, hunting, and then gathering, etc. So obviously, if you need water, if you don't have storage spaces, where will you find water? You will find it either you live near rivers, or you live near basically you need to live near some places which have a natural source of drinking water coming in. That is why you'll find that, you know, all these earlier men or earlier sites, even the Harappan civilization, these sites actually developed around the river areas. Okay, so this Old Stone Age, you will find that these sites generally located near water sources. And then several rock shelters and caves. See, earlier, if they are not making huts, where will they stay? They will stay in some area which is naturally protecting them. And what is the best what is the best place where you can get, like, you can stay also for a longer period of time and you can be protected also, is basically the caves or the rock shelters that are available. So these were the places which were used by Paleolithic people to actually stay for a longer period of time. Okay, and I already told you that the settled way of living basically started around the Mesolithic period, but then it properly got established during the Neolithic period. So in Paleolithic period, people are still wanderers, they're hunters and gatherers, and they used to live in the natural rock shelters or caves. Now, what is the most important part for prelims from here is this part. Okay, what is this? Basically, these are the sites that you need to remember, which are basically the Paleolithic sites. Okay, so how many sites are there? There are 6 sites, and you need to remember them. So we will start marking them and see if you can remember them. Okay, so the most important site that you might have studied in your art and culture also, and you should be studying about it, is basically the Paleolithic paintings, which you also call as petroglyphs, which are present in Madhya Pradesh, Bhimbetka. Okay, so Bhimbetka in Madhya Pradesh will be somewhere here. So this is a Paleolithic site. Okay, then there is Adamgarh Hill in Narmada Valley. So Narmada Valley will be somewhere here. So Narmada Valley. Okay, then there is Kurnool in Andhra Pradesh. It is also a place where fire, basically you have found evidences of fire. Okay, so Kurnool in Andhra Pradesh will be somewhere here. And then there is Athirapakkam in Chennai, somewhere here. And then there is Shivalik Hills of North. We already know Shivalik basically is the outer Himalayas. So somewhere here. And then there is Soan Valley and Potwar Plateau in the northwest India, somewhere here. Okay, so these 6 sites you need to remember. Repeat with me. Soan Valley and Potwar Plateau in the northwest India, Shivalik Hills in the northern India, Bhimbetka in Madhya Pradesh, Adamgarh Hill in Narmada Valley, Kurnool, Andhra Pradesh, and Athirapakkam in Chennai. So these are the 6 sites which are basically known as the Paleolithic sites, where we have found evidences of Paleolithic men living. Okay. Now, what are the distinct characteristics of this old Stone Age? Okay, so the distinct characteristics are basically hunting and gathering was the main occupation here. Okay, and see, if you're hunting and gathering, that means people are really skilled, that they know which animal to hunt and which animal not to hunt, and also what to eat and what not to eat. They need to be understanding about what is poisonous, what is, what is a poisonous fruit and what is a non-poisonous fruit. So that intelligence they had. Okay, and yeah, you will find that if you have to hunt animal, you need some sort of element, right, to kill them, like to actually hunt them. So those stone tools that they used to use. Why stone tools? Because we're talking about Stone Age. Okay, so these stone tools were like hand size, they were handmade only, and they used to use this technology of stone on stone. Okay, so they used to shape their stones also, and there were two techniques. Either you hit basically stone on stone and give shape to each of these material, or you basically, when you are hitting a stone, whatever flake that comes out, you shape that thing. So there can be two ways. See, either you are shaping a flake or you are shaping a stone. Okay, so that way. Now these stone implements I already told you, and they were made from quartz material or quartzite as we call it. And quartz is basically silicon oxide. Okay, silicon dioxide or silicon oxide. Now the large pebbles that we already know, they are found in river terraces. And see, you have a stone, but you need something to hit, right? So you need like a stone axe also. And we don't have any knowledge about their communication, their language, because they have not written anything. Like, see, how are you communicating with me? Because I am talking something, okay, and it's a language that you understand, that I speak. I'm writing something which is a script that you understand and I speak. Okay. If I write here Supriya, you understand Supriya because you know S is S, U is U, P is P, etc. But now in this period, you don't have any written evidences only of any script or any language. And that is why you have very little knowledge about the communication they might have used to interact with each other. Okay. Now, after basically Paleolithic, here people are hunter-gatherers. But as we go towards Mesolithic, you will find people will start settling. They will not become like settle, but they will start settling. Like they will start exploring the settled way of life. And ultimately, Neolithic, they will basically become completely settled. Okay. And Bhimbetka is very, very important, specifically from the art and culture point of view, because Bhimbetka paintings, a lot of the questions have already been asked in the prelims examination and also in the mains examination, where they asked you about the Mesolithic, Neolithic paintings, and is there any continuity between them and what we see today? Okay, so that way, like the question was not direct, but you need to understand the paintings of then and paintings of today and tell that how continuous we have been. Now, something that is missing in this book that you need to learn extra is basically Paleolithic period, of what we call as the old Stone Age, has been divided into three parts again. Okay, lower, middle, and upper. Okay, so Paleolithic, I already told you, somewhere around 4 lakh to 5 lakh. Okay, going to somewhere around 10,000 BC. Okay, so the lower Paleolithic period basically means you go 5 lakh to 1 lakh. So 5 lakh, so basically 5 lakh years BC, and then going to till 5 lakh, 5 lakh, 4 lakh, 3 lakh, 2 lakh, 1 lakh. So that period, almost like 4-5 lakh years gone, they constitute the what we call as a lower Paleolithic period. Here you will find that the kind of weapons that they have are basically hand axes. Okay, they have basically cleavers, and they are the stone tools that they're using are very irregular. Right? There is no shape. They are just coming across some stone. They are like a little bit flaking it here and there, irregular shape, and they are trying to kill animals. Then comes the age of what we call as the Middle Paleolithic. Okay, Middle Paleolithic goes from 1 lakh years, 1 lakh BC to 40,000 BC. Okay, and this period you will find that the kind of tools have actually changed. Now the tools are more rectangular. So from irregular shape, they have moved to become rectangular. Okay, and here you will find like some tools like blades, etc., or burines, etc., they which are coming into scene. And now we go towards the Upper Paleolithic period, and this Upper Paleolithic period is basically the what we call as the newest one in Paleolithic, which is 40,000 to somewhere around 10,000 BC. And here you will find basically points and sharp triangular shaped stone tools being used. Okay, so from irregular to rectangular to triangular is a transition that we see within Paleolithic itself, from lower, middle, and then Upper Paleolithic. Please write this in your copies because this is a very, very important information as far as prelims is concerned. Okay, not means. Then we come to the second age, which we call as the Mesolithic or a Middle Stone Age. Okay, so this next stage of human life is called as the Mesolithic or Middle Stone Age, and which I already told you falls somewhere around 10,000, 6,000. But this period might change depending on what book you're reading. If you're reading NCERT, you might find a different figure written there. Okay, it is a transitional phase, and I told you it's a basically a middle phase between Paleolithic and Neolithic age. Okay, Mesolithic age. Please remember the sites which are found in Lahanganj in Gujarat, okay, Adamgarh in Madhya Pradesh, and Rajasthan also has a place called Bagor. Okay, so that way. So please remember these three places. What are these? The Paleolithic sites were 6 in number. Mesolithic sites are 3 in number. Okay, one is Lahanganj in Gujarat. Then there is Azamgarh in Madhya Pradesh, and there is some places of Rajasthan, UP, and Bihar. Okay, so these three places are known for their Mesolithic sites. Okay, the paintings and engravings that they have found here is basically giving you an, see, if suppose this is a cave. Okay, in this cave you found a painting where you saw people. Okay, then you saw some animals, you saw some hunting scenes, you saw some singing scenes, you saw some dancing scenes. So what are these paintings trying to convince to you or trying to convey to you? These paintings are telling you that old, like these people who were living in like past times, or who are what we call as our ancestors, these people also had a social life. They had some economic activity. Okay, they also used some elements of dance and culture and singing, etc. to actually, you know, pass their time, to use it as a place where they can come together, they can enjoy, and they can sit and chit chat. Okay, so obviously the language we can't understand, but the emotions can come through us, especially through these paintings. Okay, so that is why we always say that these paintings and engravings are giving you an idea about how what their social life or economic life would have been. Okay, inside of this Mesolithic age, a different type of stone tools is found. And now see, in Paleolithic you had a very irregular, and going towards the end you had a very triangular shaped tools, but still they were very large, they were very bulky. And as you move towards Mesolithic, you will find the stone tool size has changed. Now they are basically perfecting the art of hunting and gathering, because they know that the sharp tools are good, and they also know that the bigger the tool, it is very hard to actually precisely hunt an animal. The more sharper and more smaller the tool is, it's very easy to hunt the animal. And that is why you'll find Mesolithic period you have stone artifacts which are basically very small, like 5 centimeters in size, and they are called as microliths. So Mesolithic age is basically famous for their tools called as microliths. Okay, and this hunting gathering pattern, I already told you, it like it continued during this period also. However, you will find that now they have shifted from hunting big animals. Okay, like probably like elephants or something, they were hunting earlier, but now they're not hunting big animals, they're hunting smaller animals. They're doing fishing. Okay, and they're using now bows and arrows. So now what they're using, so they are using bows and arrows also. And see, the stone tools have changed. They've started using new tools like bows and arrows. They are basically hunting and gathering, but they're hunting for smaller animals. But now you'll find, instead of just hunting gathering, they're also now they've started settling basically. Started settling in the sense they've started living in like one place, and where they'll like domesticate some animals. Okay, and they will start basically growing crops, and primary cultivation will start. And how do you know this? Because you found that animal bones in the sites, okay, especially like of dog, bears, boars, and ostrich, etc. And burials also you have found of dead, along with some microliths and shells seem to have been practiced. Because burials in the sense where like the man who probably died was buried, and with him you will find some stone tools, some animal bones, etc. also getting buried. So that is why you can infer that, you know, there's somewhere settling life would have started. Okay. So in Mesolithic period, first of all, there is microliths, and there is domestication of animals, that is important. There is the settlement that has started. You have also found the paintings here, and the important sites will be basically Adamgarh in MP, and I already told you, okay, Rajasthan, UP, Bihar, and also Lahanganj in Gujarat. Okay. Now we'll come to the next stone age, which is basically the new stone age, what we call as the Neolithic age. So Paleolithic, hunting gathering; Mesolithic, hunting gathering plus basically some form of settlement; and Neolithic is proper settlement, proper domestication, proper cultivation. Okay, so this is what we call as a remarkable progress in the human civilization. Okay, and it started somewhere. What was the timeline here? So this will start around when the Mesolithic period will get over. So somewhere around we can say 4000 to 6000 to 4000 BC. You might also find a figure of 4000 to 2700 BC or 3700 BC. So these figures keep changing. I'm telling you, there is no like a sharp boundary that you can say that this is the time, and that is why these timelines change depending on who's writing the history. Okay, or what evidences they are following. Okay, so Neolithic, you will find it remains, Neolithic remains on Neolithic sites are present in many parts of India. And for example, like if I have to tell you like the sites which are much more in number and which we have much more evidences about, this will be the Neolithic sites. So like we'll start from Kashmir. If you talk about, you'll find that in Kashmir you have Gulfakram. Okay, in Assam you have Dauji Hedling. In Bihar you have Chirand. Okay, you have Belen Valley in UP. Then you have basically in South India also you have certain like very important Neolithic sites, like you have Maski and Brahmagiri and Halur and Kodikal in Karnataka. Okay, so if this is Karnataka, you will have Maski, Halur, Kodikal and Brahmagiri. Okay, and in Tamil Nadu you have Payampalli, and in Andhra Pradesh you have Untnur. Okay, so these are the, see, now you can see there are so many sites like 4, 6, 8, 9, almost like 12 to 13 sites you have learned in the Neolithic age. Okay, and the chief characteristic about this Neolithic culture is basically the practice of agriculture, because I already told you they have started settling, they've now started proper cultivation. And obviously, see, once you start cultivating crops, you realize that it's a cycle. You have to you have to sow the seeds, and you have to wait for them to basically get they grow, and then you have to harvest them, and then you have to store them, and then you have to again prepare the ground for sowing another seed. That means now you cannot just move, because you have to take care of your crops. So that is why once you start cultivating, you will also find that there people start settling. Okay, so now you have domestication of animals also. You have polish. Now the stone tools have become much more polished, like they are polishing their stone tools, and you will find here evidences of pottery manufacturing. This is a very, very important point, pottery manufacturing. In fact, the cultivation of plants and animals led to the emergence of village communities. Why? Because there will be land, there will be people who will be cultivating, and then there will be a village around it. Okay, so there is a starting of sedentary life. Now, you will find that in this age only, there was a great improvement in technology for making tools and other equipments. Okay, so stone tools, obviously they're not like crude as they were before. They are small, but they're also polished. Okay, so you have found these polished axes, etc., which are very effective in cutting trees and chopping trees, so that you get an area to cultivate, you get an area to live. Okay, now what you need houses to live, because you're living a settled life. So you will find that mud brick houses have been constructed instead of grass huts. Now wheels have been used to make pottery. Okay, and the pottery was also used for cooking. It was also used for storage of food grains, because now you've started cultivating. Okay, you have found large urns, which we basically which they might have been using as coffins for burying the dead. Okay, and different kinds of burials also you have found. You've also found that there have been improvements in agriculture, like wheat, barley, rice. Millet were cultivated in different areas at different points of time. Rice cultivation was very, very extensive, especially in the eastern India, because you already know that today also eastern India contributes like majority of rice consumption states. And domestication of sheep, goats, and cattle was widely prevalent. Cattle were used for cultivation and transport also. We know that these cattle can be used as draught animals. Draught means that's something that can be used for transportation. And people of Neolithic age, they used basically cotton, since they were cultivating cotton and wool, etc. So they made clothes out of them. Okay. So Neolithic age, you already know now the important sites, and one important site in Neolithic age which is present in Pakistan is basically your Mehergarh. Okay, please don't forget the site which is very famous Neolithic site in Pakistan is Mehergarh. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll look at the map which was given here. Okay, and we will try to see if we remember the sites or not. So now here Kalibangan we have not read, Indus we have not read, Mohenjo-daro no. Okay, but we have read what? We've read Maski, we have read Brahmagiri, we have read Arunachallur. Okay, Arunachallur we are yet to study, but we have read like these two sites. So now your homework here, or your homework is to tell me where have we like studied these two sites, Brahmagiri and Maski. Okay, are they Paleolithic, Mesolithic, or Neolithic sites? Okay, so please do this and write it in the comment box below. So now after having completed what? The Stone Age, all the three kinds of Stone Age, middle, old and new, Paleo, Meso and Neo, we will move towards the Metal Age. So Metal Age is basically the starting of what we call as the Chalcolithic period. Okay, copper was the first metal to be used, and after that came the iron. Okay, so you will find that Neolithic period is followed by something called as Chalcolithic or Copper Stone Age, where you will find copper and its alloy called bronze. You know what? It's your homework. Tell me in bronze along with copper what is mixed, in brass along with copper what is mixed. Okay, and in Copper Stone Age, the Chalcolithic age, you will find that bronze has been used extensively. Okay, because why? Because people have not discovered this new technique where they can smelt the metal ore, okay, and craft anything out of it. Like they can make different artifacts, etc. And that is why people have become obsessed with this new metal called copper. Okay, but they have not stopped using completely their stone tools, because they are effectively using stone tools in their daily life. That is why you have presence of copper and bronze, and you have stone. That is why you call it as Copper Stone Age. Okay, here you will find, see, metal, stone, so you can find anywhere, right? But what about metal? In India also, you know that there are specific places where you find copper mines. For example, there is Zaveri mines in Rajasthan. Okay, similarly, you have Andhra Pradesh, Nellore area. Similarly, you have Jharkhand, Singhbhum area. So these are the areas where you will find that there are copper deposits. That means metal is not found everywhere, unlike stone. So here you will find, to gather metals, because you have to make a lot of tools from them, people have started traveling long distances now. Okay, to gather these metal ores, to bring them to the places where they need these metal ores. And that is a feature, very important feature of Chalcolithic culture, because here you will find people of different cultures have started interacting with each other. Okay, and these Chalcolithic cultures also, they have grown around the river valleys. Most importantly, I already told you the Harappan civilization is also called as the Chalcolithic age of proto-history. Basically, this Harappan culture is considered as a part of Chalcolithic culture. Okay, in southern India, you will find the river valleys of Godavari, Krishna, Tunga, Bhadra, Pennar, and Kaveri. They also had like farming communities which settled during this period. They were also using but this is important. They were not using metals in the beginning of Metal Age, but as the Metal Age was ending, they also started using metals. Okay, so the Chalcolithic age, if I have to tell you, you have found like this Payyam-Palli in Tamil Nadu is a good example where you have found certain artifacts which are belonging to this Chalcolithic age period in Tamil Nadu. Okay, now after Chalcolithic age came the Iron Age, which in India is signified by the Vedic culture in the north, or what we call as the megaliths in the south. Okay, so Iron Age is basically, I'm telling you again, Iron Age is equivalent to calling Vedic culture in India in the northern India, and it is equivalent to saying that there was a megalith burial found in the southern peninsula. Okay, so megalith basically means a very large stone. Okay, and these burial pits were covered with these stones. So if suppose there is a grave, what they used to do was they used to cover it with a very large, like very large size stones. Okay, and these caves have been extensively found in the southern India. And some of the important megalithic sites, okay, megalithic in the sense southern Indian site that where you have found this Iron Age thing, etc., is basically Halur and Musk in Karnataka, Nagarjun Konda in Andhra Pradesh, where you have also have a Buddhist monastery. Then there is Adinachalur in Tamil Nadu. Okay, and see, just like we are studying about the evolution of the stone tools from Paleolithic to Mesolithic to Neolithic to Chalcolithic and then to Iron Age, you will find that pottery has also evolved. Okay, wherein earlier you might have had like suppose plain pottery or something, then you move to like black and red pottery, then you move to earth color pottery, and then you might have moved towards the luster pottery. Okay, the black glaze pottery that we call it. So there are different like there's an evolution of pottery also happening as and when people are actually becoming more and more conscious about the things that they are using to make artifacts, etc. Okay, so Chalcolithic age. So I'll give you like little more brief, which is not mentioned in this Tamil Nadu book, but you need to know because of the children's perspective point of view. So this Chalcolithic age, first of all, remember a rough idea that it started somewhere around 2000, might have gone like 2000, 2700 or something, might have gone till like 1500 BC. Okay, and here the some important sites that you need to know because they have been in news recently are basically Ahar Baine, Ahar Banas in southern Rajasthan. Okay, then there is Malwa region in MP, and then there is Daimabad region in Maharashtra. Okay, remember three important sites for Chalcolithic period. One is Ahar Banas. Banas is a river in Rajasthan. That's why Ahar Banas is in southern Rajasthan. Then there is Malwa. Okay, I'll write it just neatly. Here it is Malwa in MP, and then there is Daimabad. And where is it? Maharashtra. Okay, so these are very important three sites which are basically part of Chalcolithic culture. And you already know now Chalcolithic also involves Harappan civilization. So now the next topic that we will take is what we call as the Harappan civilization. Okay, so now let's move towards a very important topic which is actually UPSC's favorite because they have asked every year one question on Harappan civilization. Fixed every year in one question in Harappan civilization, either in pre or in mains. Okay, so this Harappan civilization, first of all, why do you call this civilization as Harappan civilization? So you should know that Harappan civilization is actually a part of the oldest civilizations that used to exist in the world, and the other three being Chinese, then Egyptian, and Mesopotamian. Okay, and the fourth is obviously our Indus Valley civilization. Now, Indus Valley civilization is also called as Harappan civilization because Harappa was the first site, okay, which was discovered of this Indus Valley civilization. It basically, we discovered a site called Harappa. We saw that there is, a proper like evidence of civilization being present, and we started calling the civilization Harappan until we discovered like so many other cities like Mohenjo-daro, Chano-daro, Kalibangan, Ropar, Lothal, Dholavira, etc. And then we found out that these all cities were either based on Indus or its tributaries in some other form, and that is why we basically then changed the name from Harappan to Indus Valley civilization. Okay. So the earliest excavations in the Indus Valley, they were done at Harappa in the West Punjab. And now remember the two most important sites of Harappan civilization, Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, which we'll be studying later. Both of these sites are present in today's Pakistan. They're not in India. Okay, this has been asked in prelims before. Now both places are now in Pakistan. The findings of these two cities brought to light a civilization which we properly called as the Indus Valley civilization. Okay, it is also called as a Sindhu civilization because in Sindhu is the name of Indus in Hindi. Okay, but this civilization was later named Indus, as I told you, because both sites were discovered away and away from the Harappan like city. Now, what we'll do is basically we will study about the important sites of this civilization. We'll also study about the social and economic life of people living in this civilization. So, see, first of all, you should understand the difference between a civilization and culture. See, culture is your way of life. Okay, this is how you live, like your dances, your food, your language, etc. The way you dress up, everything. Like the everyday what you experience yourself is your culture. But what is civilization? Civilization has much more part to it. Like it is not just culture, but it has like political setup, economic setup, social setup of a society also. So civilization, if you're talking about, we are saying basically a much larger entity. We are not only concerned with the people, but interactions between them in different spheres, political, economic, and social spheres. Okay. So now we will learn about the important sites of Harappan civilization. Okay. So what I'll do is we'll go back to the map, which yeah, this map. Okay, so this is the map we should be seeing, and here you can see some sites, right? For example, Kalibangan, Ropar, Indus. Oh, sorry, Indus no, like Mohenjo-daro. Then there will be Chanudaro. Then there will be Kot Diji. Then there will be Lothal. Then there is Dholavira also here. Okay, then there is then here there are like more sites. Okay, so all these sites like here also, and there will be here also. Then there will be Surkundai. Then there will be here. Okay, Sutka Kendur, and then there will be Shotugai in Afghanistan. So you will find that there are a lot of sites, and these sites are nothing but these sites are what we call as the sites of Indus Valley civilization. That this Indus Valley civilization actually flourished. Okay, so now we will look at the most important sites and the few sites that we will discuss along with their we will see the location also, so that you remember it and it gets etched in your memory. Okay, so here if suppose I have to draw like a rough diagram, I'm drawing of India because we don't do North India, so I'm just like taking it like that. Now it's not looking good only. Yeah, somewhere like this. Okay, so here if you know Rajasthan, okay, so this is like Rajasthan. So you will find a site called as Kalibangan. Okay, what is the site name? It is called as the Kalibangan. Now if you know here Gujarat, then this is no you know that this is river Indus, and this is basically the Sindh portion, okay, where Indus is flowing. So here only you will find a site called as Koth Diji. Okay, what it is called? Koth Diji. Okay, then in Gujarat, if you have to basically make, you will find a site which is present here and a site which is present here. Okay, so basically there are two sites. One is a dockyard, and other one is basically just a normal site like any other site. Okay, so one is Lothal and other is Dholavira. Okay, so here you can see Lothal is present here and Dholavira is somewhere here. Okay, so Dholavira and Lothal. Lothal was a dockyard. Okay, where ships could come and get dock, etc. So Lothal was a dockyard, while Dholavira is a city inside. Okay, so now you can see that if Kalibangan is there, then there is one more site like Mohenjo-daro, you can say. Then there is Chanudaro. Then here is somewhere Kot Diji, and then there is Harappa over here. Okay, then there is Ropar here. And there is Rakhigarhi also in Haryana today, and then there is Dholavira, Lothal, etc. Okay, so there is also like few sites like Banwali in Haryana, as you can see here. Banwali in Haryana, Lothal, Surkotra, and Dholavira in Gujarat. Okay, and the larger cities, like what we call the cities which were like mega size, and they were like going in hectares and hectares. They include like Mohenjo-daro, Kalibangan, and Harappa, etc. Okay, so Mohenjo-daro is one of the largest of the all Indus cities, and it is estimated to have a spread of 200 hectares. That's not a joke. At that point of time, having like such bigger sites is a very, very important thing, because they give you a lot of perspective to study those sites and understand what kind of culture existed there. So now we will study about the origin and evolution, and this particular piece of information is only available in Tamil Nadu book. Okay, it is not available in NCERT as of now. So the archaeological findings, okay, how do you, this particular thing is called as stratigraphy. Okay, wherein what you do is basically, so there are layers. Suppose this is our earth, and there was a Harappan civilization that existed. But now we already know that Harappan civilization is no longer existing. They will be like, this might have gotten buried. And now what will happen? There will be Vedic civilization, and then this Vedic civilization also got buried. So you will find that there are different layers in the earth, which basically if you start excavating, if you start basically khodofying, you will realize that after you take out, you can basically collect this particular sample, then you can have this particular sample, etc. In this way, basically you can find that under this particular like burial, you can have certain excavations, certain artifacts, etc. discovered. Similarly, under this also you can have certain artifacts of Vedic civilization. So that Vedic culture. So that way, what you will do is you can easily find out that what came first. So whatever came first will be like the lowest part of this whole mound, and whatever came the last will be the newest part of this mound. Okay, so in a mound, the lowest part at the bottom of the pyramid is something that is very, really old, and the top of the pyramid is something that is really, really new. Okay, So now you will find that archaeological findings excavated for the last 8 decades reveal the gradual development of Harappan culture. So there are 4 important stages of Harappan culture, what we call as the pre-Harappa, early Harappa, late Harappa or mature Harappa. Okay, mature Harappa and late Harappa. So what are the 4 Harappan, what we call as the stages of Harappan civilization development? One will be pre, then there is early, then there is mature, and then there is late. So we'll start with the pre-Harappan stage. So this is a state where like cities will start building up. Like they are rural, but they might get transformed into rural to urban types. Okay. So here you will find, especially in Balochistan, etc., there have been excavations of Mehergarh, which I told you is a place in Pakistan. Okay, 150 miles to northwest of Mohenjo-daro. It reveals the existence of pre-Harappan culture. Okay, here basically you will find that nomadic people have started now finally settling and living like an agriculture or domesticated life. Now in early Harappan, you will find that people are living in villages, but those villages are really, really large. Okay, and gradually you will find that these villages are converting into towns. Okay, there's a transition that is happening to from rural to urban life. Okay, and what are the sites here? Like Amri and Kodiji. Okay, so these are the examples of early Harappan stage. Then comes the mature Harappan stage. Okay, so in mature Harappan stage, you will realize that there have been great cities that have emerged. So mature is basically when the Harappan stage is at its peak. So here the sites like Kalibangan and Mohenjo-daro, etc., you can come because these are the times when the great cities got built. And this is like a proper urban feature, like proper town planning, proper urban features of a particular like Harappan civilization you can find here. And then comes the last stage, which is the late Harappan stage. So if I have to tell you, if I have to draw a graph of, then it will be pre-Harappan, and there is early Harappan, then there is mature Harappan, and then finally there is again a decline and there is late Harappan. Okay, so late Harappan stage is basically when there is a decline of Indus culture. And this is the time when you will find that Indus Valley civilization has started declining. Like the sites have started like drying up, and the excavations at Lothal revealed that this is stage of evolution when Lothal might have been flooded with the water. Okay, or there might have been droughts, or there might have been like some sort of problems wherein the people of the Indus Valley civilization are not as flourished, not as like happy as they were before. Okay, and so now, after having studied the 4 stages of Harappan civilization, we will move towards the date of Harappan culture. Okay, so in 1931, Sir John Marshall, he estimated the duration of occupation of Mohenjo-daro to be around 3000 BC, somewhere around 2700 BC. Okay, subsequently, when new sites were discovered, this dating of Harappan culture was modified, and then the new basically dates came in. But till now, I'm telling you, till now, the dates have not been finalized. That what was the exact date of Harappan civilization? Like when did it start exactly, and when did it end? There have been exactly no dates. Okay, and there is like ongoing discussions, and even like if you have read your news also, like recently the art and culture news, you will realize that Harappan culture has no specific date. Okay, and people like historians keep coming as and when they discover artifacts, they start basically they keep changing these dates. So now we will discuss the salient features of this Harappan civilization or Harappan culture. Okay, because this is very, very important, and this is what we call as a most important like part of the Harappan civilization. Understanding how they lived, understanding the social, economic, political, religious, town planning, everything, and understanding like different features about certain cities, because these are the things that are asked mostly in the prelims paper. Okay, and this has been asked in the mains paper also, as in telling you that most of the civilizations like Chinese, Egyptian, or Mesopotamian, or even Greek, you might have found that these civilizations, they vanished, and after that new civilizations developed in the same places. But these new civilizations do not have any continuous element from the past. Like if you see the Greece today, or if you see the China today, they might have a very less linkage with what was present in the earlier civilization, like Mesopotamia civilization. If you consider then, and the people who are living now in Iraq, Iran, this area, you will find that these people have very lesser linkages to their past, okay, to their civilization that existed before. But in India, we have a very strong connection, okay, deep running connection to the Indus Valley civilization. The things that existed then are the same things we even see today also in some form, okay, like in the form of bricks, in the form of urban planning, in the urban planning, in the form of town planning, in the form of drains, in the form of construction of roads, in the form of construction of cities in the grid pattern. So these are all the continuous elements from our past till present, and this was the mains question asked. Okay, but the prelims question have been about the sites, about the social religious like life of the Harappan civilization, the gods they used to worship, etc. Okay, so this we will take now. So we'll start with the salient features of Harappan culture. The first thing that we will discuss right now is basically the town planning. Okay, the town planning in the sense means, see, remember that Harappan culture, unlike in many civilizations that existed then, it was a urban dominated culture. Okay, that means what? You will find a lot of urban cities, lot of urban settlements like what we see today. The cities that we see today, they have proper roads, they have proper drain structure, they have a proper housing pattern, they have a certain area like civil lines, etc., which is famous for their administrative offices, and then there are other areas where you have residential houses. So somewhere like that, in this lines only, you will find that Harappan town planning was done. So if you see, so we'll discuss about the town planning. So the Harappan culture was distinguished by its system of town planning. It's a very, very important concept of Harappan culture because the town planning was on the basis of grid system. Okay, like this. So it was based on the grid system, that is the streets and lanes cut across one another in almost right angles. Okay, so these angles are 90 degrees and that is why it is called as the right angle. This particular, okay, when two lines are cutting across at each other at exactly perpendicular way or at 90-degree angle, it is a right angle. Okay, and that is why you will realize that the city is divided into rectangular blocks like this. Okay, somewhere like this. So now you will find that Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Kalibangan, which are very important sites, they have their own citadel which is built on a high platform, and then there is another city. So what is happening is, see, grid pattern is one part of the town planning structure. Okay, second part is basically you will find that most of the cities are divided into two parts. One is the citadel part, okay, which lies on the west, okay, which is basically built on a little higher platform. That means suppose this is a city, okay, you will just appraise this platform and build like citadel here, and then rest of the city will be here. Understood? So this is basically on an appraised platform, and also citadel is a very smaller area as compared to the rest of the city in the east. So citadel lies on the west, it is on the appraised platform, it is basically smaller in size. Okay, and also in citadel you will find most of these administrative buildings, like there will be great bar that you will study in Mohenjo-daro, then the granaries, etc. So these are all found in the citadel area. Okay, so now understood the difference between the citadel area and the rest of the city. Citadel basically on the west, appraised platform, then used for administrative purposes, and it is smaller in size. Okay, and this kind of structure you will find in almost all the cities, especially the cities which are there in the mature Harappan time. Okay, you will find that the cities have been divided into these two parts. And now you will find that the houses. So first part we studied was the grid pattern, wherein the lanes are cutting across each other at right angles. Second is basically the difference of citadel versus the rest of the city. And the third is basically you will find the use of houses. There are houses obviously constructed, but these houses are using bricks. You must be wondering that where did these big bricks come? Because for making a brick requires a lot of knowledge, okay? Because you need to know that what kind of sand to use, and you need to put it in a furnace, and you need to burn those bricks, etc., to make sure that these bricks actually do not they become strong enough to actually take the load of the house. Okay, so you will find that Harappan civilization is actually using bricks, and these bricks are also in mathematical dimensions, like 4:2:1 is a dimension of the brick that they have used. That means the length is 4, the breadth is 2, and the height is 1. So you will find that all the bricks present in this Harappan civilization, they followed the same length, breadth, and height ratio. Okay, so the houses were made of bricks, and these houses were obviously they were used for residential purposes by the common people. Okay, you will also find that here large scale use of burnt bricks. I already told you that they used to put these bricks into the fire in the furnace basically, so that this clay which they have used for making a brick, it becomes much more stronger, much more red. Okay, and that is how it will color. It will get its color as red, and it will become much more stronger, and that's why it can be used. Here you will find an absence of stone buildings, which you can find in other civilizations like Mesopotamia, etc. There people are still using stone buildings. Here people have moved towards bricks. Okay, there are no stone buildings as of now which are found in Harappan culture. And another remarkable feature, okay, apart from citadel and the rest of the city, apart from the grid pattern, apart from the houses construction using burnt bricks, the fourth feature which is very important of the town planning is the drainage system. Okay, and this is a lineage that we carry from our past. The drainage system is underground. Drainage in the sense that suppose any whatever sanitation, sanitation related water, etc. This water goes into drainage lines, and these drainage lines is what we see even today. Okay, in today also we see that the drainage system in India is underground. Then there is like a big drain to which like a lot of smaller trains are getting. And then this big drain also basically like that it flows into a larger drain where a lot of like big size drains are coming. So like that only you will find drainage system existed even in the Harappan culture. Okay, where all the houses were connected to the stream drains, and these drains were not left open. because they knew that if they are left open, it will lead to diseases. And that is why you'll find that drains here are covered. What we see today, right? Stone slabs are there, right? And then there are manholes at regular intervals so that, you know, if there's any clogging, etc., they can be cleaned. You will find here also people are following the same pattern. Then we will talk about few important structures which are present in like cities. For example, Mohenjo-daro. So Mohenjo-daro, first of all, it's a very important city of the mature Harappan part. And in Mohenjo-daro, you will find few important things like granaries. Okay, granaries is where is a place of storage of grains. Okay, then secondly, you will find here something called as Great Bath. Okay, which you have only discovered in Mohenjo-daro as of now. Granaries you have also found in Harappa and other cities, but Great Bath you have only found in Mohenjo-daro. Okay, so this Great Bath is what? So this Great Bath is actually, the name suggests, Great Bath. Okay, so you will find basically a sort of swimming pool, you can say. Okay, an ancient kind of swimming pool where there are stairs on both the sides. Okay, there are drains to take the water in and to take the water out of the swimming pool. And then obviously like this some structure will be there, and then there are rooms, okay, on all the sides, so that, you know, this can be called as the changing rooms, etc. So this Great Bath, if you see what is its length, breadth and height, is 39 feet in length, 23 feet in breadth and 8 feet in depth. Okay, there are flight of steps which are taking you into the into this Great Bath and taking you out. And you know what is happening? See, in swimming pool also they need to use special material so that water does not seep in. So here also you will find that they have used a material, okay, and like a tar like material which they have actually coated on the floor of the bath. See, first of all they will make a floor with a normal burnt brick, but then what will happen, they will cover it with something like a material so that the water does not seep in. Okay, and there are side rooms, as I already told you, for changing clothes. And then, you know, water is coming from a large well, which is, and then you will find that water is also going out from one corner, so that, you know, dirty water doesn't stay in the bath, it is continuously getting drained. So you must be wondering that why do you need like this big sort of structure or swimming pool then? So basically people have assumed that it was mostly for ritualistic purposes because it is present in the Citadel Wala area. And the largest building that you have found in Mohenjo-daro is not the Great Bath but the granary that I was telling you. It was 150 feet in length and 50 feet in breadth. Okay, but Citadel of Harappa has like 6 granaries. So Harappa is famous for 6 granaries. Okay, so these are few things that we know about the town planning. Now we will move towards the economic life of Harappan people. Like what they used to do, how they used to earn money. Do they need to earn money? Was there any like money system, or was there barter system? So you must know that there was no money system as of then. There was only barter system. So people, suppose if you and me are here, okay, let us just assume. So I am like cultivating rice in my field and you are cultivating wheat. So instead of you going and you know, taking money to the market and, you know, buying something else, what you used to do, suppose you need for your living clothes. So you go to a person who's manufacturing clothes. You need for living, you need wheat. You also need basically something like cosmetics. So you will go and you will trade each of these materials with rice. So you will offer rice and instead of that you will get wheat. You'll offer rice instead of you will get clothes. You will offer rice and instead of you will get some cosmetics. So this is how a barter system works. Okay. So economic life, you will find out that there was a greater progress in all spheres of economic activity. For example, agriculture. For example, industry. For example, crafts and trade. Okay, wheat and barley, they are the main crops that which are grown here besides sesame, mustard and cotton. Okay, I am taking just an example of barter system here to tell you rice. Okay, I'm not giving you exactly that what was grown here. Now here the crops are given as wheat, barley, which were the main crops, and then apart from that sesame, mustard and cotton. Okay, the surplus grain, obviously they were stored in the granaries because we know that Harappa had 6 granaries. Then animals like sheep and goats and buffaloes, they were domesticated. The use of horse, which has been asked in the UPSC examination, has not yet been established. And this was the exact statement of a UPSC prelims paper, which was basically 2 years before. Okay, where they gave you statements regarding Harappan culture and asked you to mark the correct statement, and the wrong answer, and this horse statement was also given, and which was wrong. Okay, horses were never found, like the confirmation of horses has not been done that they were present in the Harappan civilization. But number of other animals were hunted for food, including deer. Okay, then there existed a special. So see what is happening in Harappan civilization. If somebody is cultivating, somebody is only making cosmetics, somebody is making work, working in crafts. That means what? That these people have become skilled in their particular activities, and that is why you will find that now there are specialized group of people working in one activity. For like goldsmiths who are working only in gold, and there are brick makers who will be only making bricks. Then there are stone cutters who will be only cutting stones, and there are weavers, there are board builders, there are terracotta manufacturers, okay, etc. These bronze and copper vessels, they are basically outstanding examples of, Harappan metal craft, like how they can use metals to bring about so many different artifacts using bronze and copper. The gold and silver ornaments have also been found. The pottery remains plain, but you have found basically the painted pottery also, the red and black painted pottery, wherein what they do is basically they'll paint everything red, and then with black they will make the outlines. Okay, and the pottery will have like certain patterns, like floral patterns they'll be there, then will be triangular shapes like rectangle, square, etc. Okay, and the beads were also manufactured, like those small beads, from wide variety of semi precious stones. Okay, internal trade as well as external trade both were extensive. Internal trade was extensive with other parts of India. Okay, foreign trade you will find out, since there's Harappan Valley civilization and there are other civilizations like Somalian, Mesopotamian. They are also flourishing at this point of time. So we will find that India is having at that point of time very extensive trade with all these countries to import and export materials. Okay, so this you need to learn, like what all materials were imported from where. So Iran. So from here you will find that. That gold, copper, and tin, and several semi other precious stones were imported. Okay, so these were the imports. Okay, but now what were the exporting items? So what were we exporting to other countries? So we were exporting wheat, barley, peas, oil, seeds, and variety of finished products, including like cotton goods, potteries, the beads, terracotta figures, and ivory products, because this is what we had in bulk. Okay, there is much evidence to prove that there existed some sort of trade links between India and Sumerian people that time, because you have found Indian seals there. Okay, and if you're finding seals or certain civilization in another part of the world, that means what? That there must have existed some kind of connection between them. And trade, I already told you, was a barter type. And the seals and the terracotta models of the Indus Valley reveal the use of bullock carts and oxen for transportation, and boats and ships for river and sea transport. So imagine your Harappan Valley civilization people knew how to construct boats and knew how to navigate seas for trading. Okay. Then comes the social life. So much evidence is available to understand the social life of Harappans, and you will find that both men and women have certain ornaments that are very common. Okay, so we'll draw men here. Okay, and we will draw a woman. Okay, very crude form I'm making, so something like this. So you will find that both men and women, their dress consisted of two pieces of cloth, one for upper garment and one for lower garment, for both of them. Okay, beads were worn both by men and women. You will find jewelries like bangles, bracelets, fillets, girdles, anklets, earrings, finger rings were worn by women. Okay, obviously they seem to be like too much of ornaments, and these ornaments, they either can be made of gold and silver, they can be made of copper and bronze, and they can be made using semi-precious stones. Okay, the use of cosmetics, yes, beauty features, that was also common. Various household articles like pottery, stone, shells, ivory, metals, they have been found at Mohenjo-daro. Spindles, needles, combs, fish hooks, knives, they have been made of copper, telling you that people knew art of weaving. Okay, children's toys, including that of little clay arts, marbles, balls, and dice, are also found that telling you that people had a social life. They just didn't used to work only, but they used to sit and play also. Okay, fishing was a regular occupation, and bullfighting were also some pastimes. There were numerous specimens of weapons of war, for example, axes, spearheads, daggers, and arrows and bows, which have been made of copper and bronze, and they have also been found in this as evidences in certain cities. Then we come to the most important part of Harappan civilization, which is what we call as arts. Okay, and this art is a very important part of your art and culture topic also. Okay, so this Harappan culture, so Harappan civilization, you will find few kind of artworks. Okay, first is the pottery, wherein you will have basically pottery which are wheel made and pottery which are handmade. Okay, then pottery which is plain and pottery which is painted. Okay, so this is a pottery, and its uses for three different purposes. For what? Either pottery will be used as storage, for storing something like grains, etc., or it will be used for decorative purposes, something like this. Like this pot cannot be used for anything. And then there will be another kind of pots like pottery, which has like these strains, and this will be used for straining liquor. Okay, so this will be about pottery. artifacts. Okay, then the second kind of artifact you will find here is basically the sculptures. So sculptures, in that you will find that you have 2-3 sculptures, for example, of a bearded man, of a bearded priest, and then a torso of a man whose head is not there. Okay, so sculptures made up of from the red sandstone, etc. So you will find here in like Harappan civilization. And the third, you will also found like bronze statues, especially of the dancing girl. So you have found that bronze statues wherein you can see the like how beautifully they have carved out, using copper and bronze, some statues, etc. Then fourth type of artifact that you will find here are terracotta figurines. Okay, terracotta figurines in the sense, so terracotta is a kind of material used to make, like you will find like children's toys, okay, the bullock cart, etc., made using terracotta. Then fifth kind of artifact that you can find here is basically materials, like decorative materials made from faience, which is basically sand, form of sand only. Okay, it's a material, quadrille material only made from sand, but baked, etc. So that is why it is called as faience. And the last kind of artifact that we will discuss is basically seals. So you will find some very interactive seals here, very like decorative seals with some signs and some symbols, etc. written, like pi symbol is also been found here. So these are like the 6 different kind of artifacts that you can find in the Harappan civilization. Okay. So Harappan culture or sculpture reveals a very high degree of workmanship. You can find figures of men and women, animals and birds which are made of terracotta, as I already told you. Then there are carvings on seals, for example, of the proto-Shiva, of the unicorn bull, etc. And this tells you the degree of proficiency that sculptors have achieved. Okay, the figure of dancing girl, which is a copper bronze statue, dancing girl, basically found in Mohenjo-daro, is a remarkable of its workmanship. It's basically, so you have a, like a bronze statue of the dancing girl. I cannot obviously make the girl, something like this, and you will find that the girl's right hand is on the hip, okay, while the left arm is covered with the bangles, which hangs loosely in the relaxed position, something like this, okay, and this has basically a lot of bangles. And then you can find here basically 2 stone statues also that you have found in Harappa, which is one representing the back view of a man and the other of a dancer. And like that also in Mohenjo-daro you have found a priesthood man. Okay, the pottery I already told you is another specimen of fine arts. The pots and jars were painted with various designs and colors. Painted pottery is of better quality. And the pictures you can find are lines, circles, leaves, paints and trees, etc. on the pots. Okay, and so these are like the basic, like some few very raw form about the arts which we have found in the Harappan civilization. Then comes the script. Okay, which is very important, which tells you why we call Harappan civilization as a proto-historic time. Okay, so the Harappan script has basically is still to be deciphered. We have not deciphered it yet. So you can find that pieces or inscriptions basically, having some symbols like this, etc. But you don't know what they mean. Okay, and this basically this script of Harappa is a pictographic script. You can find the number of signs between 400 to 600. Okay, and the script is basically being written from right to left, and it is called as the Boustrophedon method. Okay, when you are writing in the reverse direction in the alternative lines. Okay, like this. And you will find that many people have tried to decipher this script, but they have failed because mostly because it's a symbolic script. So you need to understand the meaning of the symbols first before you can decipher this entire script. Okay. Then we come to the religion part. So from the seals and terracotta figurines and copper tablets, we can get an idea on the religious life of Harappans. Okay, the chief male deity of this Harappan civilization was Pasupati, which we also call as a proto-Shiva. So we will find basically something like a 3-horn structure, okay, wherein, proto-Shiva, something like this, wherein he is sitting in a yogic posture, okay, something like this. And then there are certain animals sitting here, and he's sitting on a seat. So this is what we call as a proto-Shiva. Okay, and he's represented in the seal sitting in the yogic posture with like 3 faces and 2 horns. So something like 3 faces and 2 horns. Okay, he's surrounded by 4 elements. And how do you remember these four elements? R, B, T, E. Okay, and then see here basically R, T, B. How you should remember for the animals. This is like I'm telling you mnemonic. Remember L, H, B, E and R, T, B, E. Okay, in this, since you don't have horse in Harappan civilization, so LHBE is of the Vedic times and RTBE is of the Harappan times. RTBE basically means rhinoceros, tiger, bulls and elephants, and LHBE means lions, horses, bulls and elephants. So this LHBE you will find is mostly like Vedic culture and afterwards, and RTBE are the animals that you will find in the Harappan civilization. Okay, so RTBE are there, and then there are 2 deers in the feet of Proto-Shiva. So this is like the chief male deity. Now the chief female deity is the mother goddess, okay, which is represented in the terracotta figurines. In later times, you can also find linga worship. Okay, the Shiva Linga, the linga worship was very prevalent, and trees and animals are also worshipped by Harappans because they basically used to worship the mother nature. And they also believed in ghosts and evils because you have found the amulets like that tavis we sometimes people wear now on their hands and to protect themselves from the evil or the black magic, etc. So you will find that people actually they discovered some sculptures wherein what was happening on one side of the arm they had basically some sockets here. Okay, sockets in the sense that it reveals that they used to wear some sort of ornament here. And the ornament that they found later was basically the seals which are used as amulets. Okay, so that means that people here also believed in some sort of like evil forces or some ghost, etc. Then comes the burial method. Okay, so in burial method, you will realize that there are different kind of burials which are followed in different cities. Okay, the cemeteries have been discovered around the cities like Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, Kalibengal, Lothal, Ropar, etc., which throw a light on different kind of burial practices which have been practiced in the Harappan civilization. There is a complete burial and post-cremation burial practice in the Mohenjo-daro region, but in Lothal, which was present in Gujarat, the burial pit was lined with the burn bricks, indicating the use of coffins. Okay, wooden coffins have been found in Harappa. There have been the practice of pot burials, where in a pot you will basically place the person, and it is found in the Lothal, sometimes with a pair of skeletons. And however, but you cannot find here the practice sati. Sati was not present here. Okay. And now, after having discussed this, we will discuss about the decline of Harappan culture. Okay, what led to the decline of Harappan culture? So you will realize that this has been a question asked in means. Okay, that theories which are very famous for, or we can say many different evidences or many different directions that have been given regarding to the why there was a decline in the Harappan culture. And recently this has been in news also because one of the new theories has come around decline of Harappan culture, that there was no foreign invasion because apparently they have discovered some traces of humans being present or Aryan race being present in India itself, and they do not declare, put Aryan race invasion as a decline of Harappan culture. But that theory has not been like so evidentful right now. So I would say just these are theories, okay, not like they all have evidences in support also. They all have been neglected also by other historians, but they all are existing. So if any question comes on, decline of Harappan culture, you need to actually write all of these theories. Okay, so there is no unanimous view pertaining to what the cause of decline of Harappan culture, because it was such a strong culture, such a strong urban culture, such a very rooted culture. So how did it decline? Like why this culture declined, and why there was basically, there is no Harappan civilization that we see today. So various theories have been postulated. First theory is about the natural calamities. Either there have been droughts or floods or earthquake, etc. Okay, there might be rivers which have dried up. There might have been soil which lost its fertility, so therefore no agriculture could have been practiced. Okay. Then, according to some scholars, there was a theory of invasion of Aryans, which came from this, region in the Arctic, which was written by Bal Gangadhar Tilak, the book wherein they say that Aryans from Arctic. There are some other regions which say that Aryans were not from Arctic, but from the Central Asian and European region. So that theory is also contested, okay. But the other theory is about the invasion of Aryan, and subsequently it's basically they, taking over the subcontinent. And third might be basically the third might be basically the evidences that they have found of the people which are huddled together. Okay, the discovery of human skeletons which are huddled together at Mohenjo-daro, which indicate the city was invaded by the foreigners, and obviously the Aryans had superior superior weapons, and they had also discovered iron, and they had horses also with them, so they could have invaded the city in a much faster fashion. Okay, so that is why it has also been given as one of the theories for decline of Harappan culture. So with this, we actually finished the chapter. But since I'm your mentor and you are like, you can say that I'm here to give you as much knowledge as you can gather, not just from Tamil Nadu book, but also from the other books that are available. So I'm going to tell you here some important facts about some important sites, or we are going to be discussing here some more facts related to, especially for prelims. Okay, so that you don't have to then go and scout for material here and there. So firstly, you should know that Indus Valley civilization, the major crops, okay, we already studied them: wheat, barley, sesame, mustard, peas, okay, and then there was cotton also. Okay, then you should know that there is a region called as Rangpur, okay, where rice has been discovered, but this Rangpur site was not part of Indus Valley civilization. Okay, Rangpur is not a part of Indus Valley civilization. Okay, then I already told you that there were major import and export happening with other countries. For example, this gold. Okay, so gold was brought from where? This gold was brought from, you will find that it was brought from Mesopotamia, etc. Okay, then you will find that copper came from, you can say Oman, the region of Oman, etc. The country of Oman. Okay, then you will find tin, which is coming from Afghanistan and Oman again. And then there is bronze, etc., which is coming from these mines in Rajasthan, okay, which are very famous even today for copper. And silver also is also coming from there. Okay, so that you can see that Harappan civilization is basically having intrinsic trade links within the country and also outside the country. Okay, please remember these sites because it is very very important. Otherwise like it will be really difficult for you to remember everything in the end. Okay, now before we move forward, what we'll do is we'll take like each site of the Harappan civilization, and we'll try to see if we can if we can actually remember some important points about them. So what that what I'm going to do is basically I'm drawing like a map of this northwestern part of India, because this Harappan civilization was present there only. And I'm going to make some important sites here. Okay, so you will find that there is Sutka Gendor here. Then there is Shor Tugai in Afghanistan. So can you please, I'm telling you, can you start marking it? So one is basically Sutka Gendor. Okay, then second is Shor Tugai, which is present in Afghanistan. Okay, this is the second part. Then here only you will find there is Mohenjo-daro, there is Chanhudaro. Okay, and then there is Kot Diji. So there is third is Mohenjo-daro, fourth is Chanhudaro, and fifth is Kot Diji. Okay, then in between that all, so actually, you know what, we'll just make it a better one, because otherwise it will become really difficult for you to actually learn it. Okay, let's just do, how should we do it? Yeah, okay. Okay, then there is Indus going from here. Okay, so now here we can start marking. So this is like I'm drawing like a virtual boundary of Pakistan and Afghanistan to tell you that Shor Tugai is the first one. Okay, first one is Shor Tugai, it's in Afghanistan. Okay, then here only you will find somewhere Sutka Kendor, which is like somewhere here. If you delete this boundary, because this is like an artificial boundary. So here you will find some second site, which is basically Sutka Gendor. Okay, then here you will find I'm not telling you the exact location, I'm just telling you like a location, approximate location, so that you remember that they are present along the river Indus. So this is river Indus, and these sites are present along river Indus. So this third you can say is Mohenjo-daro. Okay, then fourth here you can call it as Kot Diji. Then fifth here you can find here is Amiri, which is the fifth. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so fifth is basically Amiri. Okay, then sixth here is Chanhudaro. Okay, then here only somewhere you will find Balakot. Oh God. Yeah, seventh. So here only you will find Balakot. Okay, and then you come to this Gujarat part. Here you will find this eighth site, which is basically, I'm starting writing here, okay. Seventh is your Balakot. Eighth is your Dhola Veera. Okay, then come to your ninth, which is basically here. This site is Nageshwar. Okay, then 10th is basically here, which is your Lothal. Okay, then 11th is your somewhere here, which will be Surkotra. Okay, then you come to this Rajasthan part. Okay, so sorry, here only you will find somewhere. Okay, so here you will find 3 sites, and then there will be somewhere here. Okay, so we have covered 11th, and then now here 12, 13, 14 and 15. So that this 12th one will be your Kalibangan. Okay, Then your 13th one will be Banwali, which is in Haryana. Kalibangan is in Rajasthan. Banwali is in Haryana. 14th is your Rakhi Gadi, which is a new site which has been discovered now, which is also in Haryana. Okay, it's a new site. What is it? Rakhi Gadi. Okay, I'm starting writing here so that you guys can see. So 14th is Rakhi Gadi, which is in Haryana. Okay. Then there is 15th one, which is here, which is basically your Harappa. Okay. So I hope I've given you like a lot of sites here to remember. These are like 15 rough sites. There are obviously more sites than this, but please remember at least these many sites because this is important. Okay, you cannot leave it. Okay, so these are like important sites, and now what we'll do is we'll like try to remember something about them. So this Chan Hodaro, which I told you, which is basically your sixth site. Yeah, this one site. So this Chan Hodaro is an extremely small city, but it was known as a craft center. Okay, very important for craft center. Okay, then Rakhi Gadi is this new site which has been discovered recently. Okay, where you find burials, and this is a habitation come factory site. Okay, then in Banwali you have found terracotta figures. Here in 13th you have found terracotta figurines. Okay, you've also found in 12th in Kalibangan you have found fire altars, and you've also found the plowed field, which is telling you that they used to plow their fields. Okay. Then in Dholavira, you have found basically three things. A, the city, unlike other cities, it has been divided into three parts. Like other cities were divided into two parts, this city has been divided into three parts. Secondly, this Dholavira is also has this very large white stone where you have found some writings. Okay, some inscription done, and then you will find that this Dholavira is present in this run of Kutch. Okay, Khadir Bait region, and in Dholavira, you have also found like the gates which are actually separating these three parts of the cities. Okay, then you come to this Lothal, which is basically the dockyard of this Harappan civilization, and Lothal was also called as Lothal was also famous for its carnelian stones. Okay, so Lothal, remember, carnelian stones as well as the dockyard. Okay, then you talk about Balakot and Nageshwar. Okay, so these two basically are former they were basically famous for their shells, etc., which you can find here. Okay, so we have found a lot of shells from these Balakot and Nageshwar. Okay, in Dholavira you have also found a water reservoir. Okay, so please remember this, that you've also found a water reservoir. So in this site, like where was Shor Tugai? Yeah, Shor Tugai was the first site here. So in Shor Tugai, which is Afghanistan, you have found basically a canal. Okay, remember in Shor Tugai, which is in Afghanistan, you have also found canal, and Shor Tugai or Afghanistan was also the place from where the Indus Valley civilization people, they used to import lapis lazuli. Okay, which is a very important blue colored stone. So lapis lazuli was imported from Afghanistan. In Afghanistan only there's a site called Shor Tugai where you have found evidences of canal. Okay. Now what we'll do is basically we'll keep this slide like this at least for a minute so that you guys can actually copy it. And meanwhile, please write that lapis lazuli is coming from Afghanistan. Then Rajasthan and Gujarat are providing you steatites. Okay, steatites. What is the spelling of steatite? So it's a kind of stone, steatite. Okay. So this is coming from Rajasthan and Gujarat. Okay. Just please write it so that we can move like to some important other aspects of this particular civilization. So I'm hoping that you can pause this particular video and start writing and resume this video when you are done. So now we will also learn about a few more things about this Harappan civilization which have been asked in the previous year papers. A is first that who discovered the site of Harappa, because after that only Harappan civilization excavations might have done. So discovery of Harappa was basically done by D.R. Sahani. Okay, Daya Ram Sahani, who basically discovered the site of Harappa. And who discovered the site of Mohenjo-daro? It is R.D. Banerjee. Okay, Daya Ram Sahani Harappa, R.D. Banerjee Mohenjo-daro. Okay, and John Marshall, basically, who was there in 1924, who was the you can call that Archaeological Survey of India director then. He actually announced the discovery of new civilization in Indus, and he was the Director General of ASI or Archaeological Survey of India back then. Okay, who was it? John Marshall. Okay, and Now, since Archaeological Survey of India has been talked, you must remember that in India, the father of Indian archaeology and the first Director General of Archaeological Survey of India is who? He is Alexander Cunningham. Okay, Alexander Cunningham is the father of Indian archaeology, and he is also the first Director General of Archaeological Survey of India, while John Marshall was the one who basically came out with this Indus Valley Civilization excavation. Okay, stratigraphy is a technique that I already told you. Just a minute, let me, have you written this? Please write it. This is an information which is extremely useful for your prelims examination. Okay, now we talk about stratigraphy. I already told you that in stratigraphy, what you do is basically you try to uncover the earth or the mud from the different places, and you try to see how many layers does it have to actually get an information. Okay, so you start studying mounds, and you will find that either this study can be done vertically or it can be done horizontally. Okay, and this will give you an information about what all has happened, and in the past, etc. Okay, now there are 2-3 names that you should remember. That Mesopotamian civilization was also called as the Magan. Okay, what is it called? Magan. Similarly, if you're referring to Meluha, it actually means Harappas. Okay, which is basically land of seafarers. Okay, land of seafarers is basically referring to Harappa, which is actually referring to Meluha. And if you're referring to Dilmun, Dilmun means basically Bahrain. Okay, so these are the names which have been present in some of these like what you call extra books of ancient history and art and culture, and which can be asked easily in prelims. Okay, so Mesopotamia called Magan, Meluha is basically referring to Harappa, and Dilmun means basically Bahrain. Okay, so with this, I'm hoping that you might have gotten a complete overview about the Indus Valley civilization, and the things that I've not discussed with you in details are basically the structure, the bronze statue of dancing girl, then the bearded priest man, that sculpture we found basically, which had this shawl, okay, and then it had this trifoil pattern like this. Okay, and then we also didn't discuss about the torso, wherein we did not find a head, but on the arm only we had a socket from which we discovered that there might be amulets. We did not discover, as we did not talk about seals extensively, like the kind of shapes of seals, the material that they were made from, were they made for education purposes, or they made for trade purposes, or they were used for making amulets. Okay, and we've also not discussed about the cosmetics, like as in cosmetics also you must find that they used to use mercury, okay, extensively. They knew what the use of tincture iodine. Okay, so I have not discussed this considering the fact that this is an ancient history course. Okay, so I have discussed it from the point of view of ancient history. But since Harappan civilization is an important part of your art and culture also, so when we go to art and culture, we will discuss these things in more details. Because otherwise, what will happen will be like, if we take too many things together, it will spoil the broth. Okay, we won't get this also, we won't get that also. So for now, just limit yourself to the knowledge that I'm giving you, and then once we start with the art and culture course, you will actually find that it will be a revision also for your ancient history, and it will cover all those specifically art and culture related things, like the craft work, the how they used to make these bronze statues, like this was called as a Sire Purdue technique. Okay, wherein, or the lost wax technique. Well, how will you make sculptures? So what we'll do is, you'll first of all make a sculpture in sand. Okay, sand or clay, etc., and then what you'll do is basically you will you'll cover it with the wax. Okay, and then after that you will after covering it with the wax, basically what you will do is you will put like you'll insert a hole in it, and then you'll start filling the metal. Then once the metal acquires a shape, you will basically take out the sand from it. So this is how this particular technique will be used to make different kind of sculptures. But since it's a more important part of your art and culture topic, so let's just leave it for there. And the things that we've discussed in the Harappan civilization are what? So we discussed about, first of all, the stages of Harappan civilization. Then we went on to discuss about the different elements of Harappan civilization, like the settlements, different cities. Then we also discussed about the town planning. Then we discussed about their social life, about their religious life, about their economic activity, about the the decline of Harappan, the theories, different theories given for the decline of Harappan culture. Okay, this is what we've done in the ancient history part of Harappan civilization, and the rest, whatever is relating to the art and culture part of it, will be discussed in the art and culture lectures. Okay, with this we finish the first chapter, the second unit of the ancient history, which is both the prehistoric times as well as the art and culture. Okay, Now, what you need to do is basically just like that, just like this, I have made a map, right, of certain sites, which is not clear right now because I mean, on a slide, you can only make this. What you need to do is you need to sit, and if you have an art and culture notes also, you need to sit and actually add few more sites, okay, to this particular map and make a comprehensive one liner or a one page chart of different sites of Harappa and write below them only, like if somebody something is getting exported from there, why is that site famous? So in that way you will have entire Harappan chapter in just one page. This is how I recommend everybody to actually prepare the UPSC history part, because otherwise it's so difficult. How you have ancient, medieval, modern, world, post independence, how will you learn so much? You can't. Okay, similarly, since I didn't give it to you in the last class, what I'll do here is I'm going to make a chart of the Paleolithic, Mesolithic and Neolithic sites, okay, together in one chart, and tell you that you need to make the same. Okay, so suppose you, let's just draw the map of India. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll give like different names to the Paleolithic, Mesolithic and Neolithic sites. Okay, in Paleolithic sites we already knew, first was Bhimbetka, okay, in Madhya Pradesh. You need to please write them down. Okay, I'm telling you, Bhimbetka in Madhya Pradesh. Okay, then you had the sign that we'll use for Paleolithic is this. Then there was Suwan Valley here somewhere in northwestern India. Then there was Shivaliks. There is Suwan Valley. There is Shivaliks in the northern India. Then you also have Kurnool in Andhra Pradesh. Okay, like that. So similarly, what you'll do is you'll make the Mesolithic sites also. That will denote by stars. So Mesolithic sites were very few. There was Lahanganj in Gujarat. There was Adamgarh in there was this Adamgarh in Madhya Pradesh. Let's just draw here, and then there was some site in Rajasthan, Bihar, etc. So these are like Mesolithic sites. Then we come to the Neolithic sites that we will represent by a square. Okay, so Neolithic sites for many. So there was Hangski, there was Brahmagiri, okay, then there was one in Hallur, etc. And then there was one down here, and then there was this Gulfakral Burzahom in Kashmir. There was basically Chiran Valley, there was this Belan Valley in UP, okay, somewhere here. There was Chirand in Bihar. There was Dauji Hidling in Assam, okay, and then there was Payampalli here, okay, there was Payampalli in Andhra Pradesh here, okay, yeah. Then we came to the sites, megalithic sites, okay. So megalithic sites, how will we denote them? What symbol should we use? Let's just use triangle, okay. So in megalithic sites, what all we studied? So megalithic sites were the South Indian sites, remember? So there we have this, sorry, we use the wrong single. This will be basically Adina Chillur, okay. And there were sites, basically we have found the burials, these megalithic sites are those where we have found these large stones. So Adina Chillur was one of them, okay. Then there was Brahmagiri also, the same site where you know Neolithic is also there. So the same site you have also found megalithic burials also, similarly here also in Hallur. So you have found that certain sites will be overlapping and certain sites will be different, but like this you will have a map, like one map for prehistoric times and one map for Harappan Valley civilization. In this way, entire 2 chapters covered in 2 pages, okay. So what we'll do is, once we finish this ancient history course, we'll take up these maps, so that you know we'll call it as a map revision series of history, which no class has done so far, and which is like a very innovative concept. And I'll try to do this as soon as possible once we finish the ancient history. So in that, what we'll do, we'll take like one time period, like prehistoric time, proto-historic time, then we'll go like Harappan civilization, then we'll go to Vedic sites, then we'll go to modern sites, etc. And in this way, we will try to basically study the entire ancient history through sites which have been constructed on map. Okay, so with this, I hope you have learned something from the lecture, and if you're please liking the lecture, review, comment and share as much as you can, because that only motivates us to do better things and you know teach you much more comprehensively in the later stages. Thank you.